On Wednesday, April 28, the combined parliamentary opposition voted against the subvention for the Government Information Agency and the National Communications Network. This act means that 38 members of staff of GINA, most of whom are youths, are now on the breadline.
First place, I am the sole breadwinner for my family. I have 3 persons at home depending on me.
Parties who stood at their campaign platform and fight for job creation, and this is the same 2 parties that send home workers.
I really don't think it's fair. We have normal features like other media people. We have normal hands, normal legs, and normal family.
I think that we expected something from them that to this extent is kind of very shocking. I mean, I feel that this is just spiteful on their part. I mean, because they have to know that it would have affected persons.
I would just like to say this move is not hurting the government, but is hurting we, the workers, the contract workers, because the majority of us have families and babies. Now, who is going to put food on our table?
Cameron trying to turn the question that these are normal people who you're sending home, and he turned and said, well, if some got to cut, some got to cut. That is what he said.
And these are the same people that keep saying that they are fighting for the rights of workers. They have workers at heart. How could you have workers at heart and are sending people home now? $1 to GINA? Who's going to pay who? How are we going to get paid at the end of the month?
I feel it's really disappointing, and what are we going to do with our life now? Do they want us to go thief, borrow, beg, or just go drink rum and smoke?
I feel very disappointed because, I mean, how can you say that? How can you talk about creating more jobs, yet you're cutting? I mean, who will put the food on our table? We have bills to pay. We haven't even get paid for the month as yet. Where will we get money from? Who will pay us?
I think it's very unfair that what was done, because now most of us here are young people. What are we supposed to go and do now?
Mr. Ramjatan, thank you very much for putting me on the breadline. I have 3 kids. I have a house loan to pay. I have a lot of bills on my head. I would just like to say thank you very much.
I just like to say this budget cut will affect me and my family, and I just get a young 1 month and 2 days old child, and I don't know how she's going to survive now without a job. I don't know what happened now.
I cannot express how I feel at this moment, but I'm profoundly disappointed. Why? Because these are the politicians that encourage young people, like my colleagues, to vote for them. They'll create jobs. They have youths at heart. And this is what happens. What do you call to this? I call it betrayal. What happened to people like me? I have a child, a baby. I have a mortgage. I have a car loan to pay. I have every expense as any wife does or any family does. So what happens to me? Now, could Mr. Granger and Mr. Ramjatan answer that question, please? Could they explain to my 3-year-old why he wouldn't have milk some days?
Among the thousands of youths unemployed in Guyana right now, I am currently one of them because I have no job and I can't even start a family because I'm unemployed. What am I supposed to do? I think what the opposition is trying to do is hurt the government, but they're also hurting innocent people and people who earn an honest living. So I think it's just unfair to us.
So I just found out I'm jobless. What am I going to do? I can remember Mr. Granger said that he will create job opportunities for young people, but right now he's not doing that. So I don't know what I'm going to do.
These are the people that promised us job. Now they took it all away.
I'm an employee of the Government Information Agency, and it's very heart-wrenching to know that from tomorrow we're jobless. People's lives are depending on the decision that the opposition made. Come tomorrow, we have families, we have children to send to school. What are we going to tell them that they can't go to school because the opposition took their parents or their father or their mother's job away? That's so unfair. These are the people that told us Come vote for us, we will create jobs for you, give you a better economy to live in.
We're coming from a single parent home. It would be really hard on my behalf to go home and tell my mom that I won't be able to maintain her and my other brothers. Taking into consideration this is my first job since I was trained at Kurukuru Training Center. And what will I go and tell her? What will she do? What will I do to come in tomorrow and the rest of the other days to come?
It is amazing to know that we've come this far. I thought the budget was going fairly well. I saw APNU working pretty much with the government, trying to accomplish what the government has set out to do, which is to continue its developmental programs. And then I got a shock later that day that they were going to slash and cut and chop at GINA and NCN. I think that somebody's not thinking clearly.
As an employee of the Government Information Agency, we are mandated to cover the government and all of their activities in terms of going on public meetings. And I am a video editor for the Government Information Agency. I also do camera shooting. And it's really, it breaks your heart to know that from today that you will be jobless. And what are you going to do tomorrow? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Are you going to go and thief?
The opposition speaks of the new dispensation. If this is a new dispensation for the youths of Guyana who are employed by government agencies and these things, this is not the new dispensation for the youths of Guyana. This is going to lead us into days where it will be dark days for us and our families. And this proposed job cut, not proposed, the job cuts that will be taking place, it's going to be serious, serious, serious for us and our families. Some of us, our family depend on us solely. We have people here with young babies. I'm a father. My daughter depends on me for her livelihood and everything. So now what are we going to do? Is this creating jobs, Mr. Granger, Mr. Rabjatan? Not so.
I think whatever political arguments you put forward about what transpired in the Parliament this evening, the inevitable truth about the matter is that people are out of jobs. There's a staff complement of about 38 in the Government Information Agency, relatively young, promising individuals who are now on the unemployment line. And it begs the question if that is really the overall goal and aspirations of those in the political authority for this country, especially the youths of this country.
This act by the opposition is an assault on freedom of expression, and this goes against democratic norms. Every part of the world, in every country, there is an information agency that primarily disseminates information about the workings of the government, its programs, its policies. So voting against the Government Information Agency is not only putting 38 people out of work, but it's also trying to muzzle what the government is doing.
Very sad and disappointing note that I bring to you this report not too far from Parliament, where just moments ago the opposition majority in Parliament voted against the allocations for the state media. And with whatever political argument you put forward, the inevitable fact about the matter is that people are out of jobs. And a group of us from the Government Information Agency have gathered here to show to demonstrate our disapproval and the fact that this is a sad day for staff of the agency. I'm here with the Director of the Government Information Agency, Nia Suban, who I'm sure is just as disappointed as I am about the outcome.
Well, yes, I mean, we have quite a lot of staff, and for this kind of news to reach people, it is something that, could not make people happy. What I find very interesting is that you have an opposition that has seemingly prided itself in promoting people's welfare and accusing the government of not creating enough opportunities for employment. And here they have voted, together to cut the entire GINA budget, right, from $130 million, whatever was proposed, to $1. to $1. Technically, I want Guyanese out there to understand. Let them understand the implications of that. If you're going to take all the money away from an agency that has 40-plus staff, these 40-plus staff have families who depend on them. Some have children that depend on them. I want people out there to understand the implications of something like that in the context of an opposition that is saying that we care about people, we want more jobs, and here they're taking people out of their jobs by their actions.
But then it begs the question, what is the rationale for this action? Because the mandate of the Government Information Agency is to promote the policies and programs of the government. What then is the rationale for this reduction?
I think it's a clear attempt to try to muzzle the Government Information Agency. As you rightfully said, the government of the day and any government that I know of across this world in any country has they have an entity that provides information, pertinent information on that government's programs and policies, because people here in the Guyanese context and across the world, they have a right to be informed. They have a right to be informed on what the government is doing, the government's programs, its policies, developmental issues, and by depriving by cutting this subvention to almost zero, actually it's just $1, they're depriving the nation of their constitutional right to be informed.
So then what then is the next step for the government? Do we continue this protest action, candlelight vigil?
Well, we are here tonight. We have to still chart actions as what will happen. Of course, my authorities dealing with the issue as well. So for now, we are out here, and whatever else will happen, people will come to know. But the heartening thing is that all the staff, came here on their own free will because they understand some of these people have mortgages to pay. Some of these people, given the opportunities the government has provided in terms of the enabling environment it has created, in terms of people having access to buy a car to improve their lifestyle and all of that. Some staff have those commitments, mortgages, their car loans and other loans. They have children, as I mentioned. Some parents depend on them. Some have families, they're meaning a wife or a husband and so on to take care of. And here you have these staff now on the breadline, literally on the breadline, because with no money, this is the end of the month. We don't know where salary is going to come from. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or down the line. And I believe such reckless action, I cannot describe this as reckless actions, irresponsible actions by the opposition in putting, and if you look around, the majority of these are bright young people, the future of this country in many ways, and they're out of a job.
Thank you very much, the Director of the Government Information Agency. A group of staff from the agency as well as our colleagues from the National Communications Network have gathered here not too far from the Parliament, where just moments ago the opposition parties with their combined majority voted against the allocations provided for the state agency, which inevitably means that staff of these two agencies will more or less be out of a job. I'd just like to get a comment from you on your thoughts on the implications of this drastic move by the opposition.
All right, let me state clear from the onset that I'm speaking in my capacity as an executive of the Independent Media Workers Association of Guyana and not as a senior manager of NCN. I'm going to leave that up to our CEO to deliberate on that. The Independent Media Workers Association of Guyana sees this as a very sad day in the history of Guyana. We believe that what has transpired in the National Assembly by way of a collaboration between a Partnership for National Unity and the Alliance for Change is not just an attack on the state media, but we see it as an attack on the entire media. We condemn in all forms any attempt to derail the work of the media, whether it be private or public media or state media, as we would say, whether it be the removal of advertisements from any media house to the denial of subvention or funding for the operations, in some cases in its entirety, as in the case of the Government Information Agency. What we're seeing now is dozens of workers being placed on the breadline. I believe this is unprecedented. in a country in a country that has experienced continued economic growth. Even in a year of economic growth, you're seeing a situation where public servants are being sent home. I believe it's unprecedented, and I think I'm still attempting to fathom where a country is on the economic rise, and by the same token, we're sending public servants home. So in our view, on the part of the Independent Media Workers Association of Guyana, we believe it's a sad day in the history of Guyana. It's a sad day in the history of the media fraternity in Guyana.
But do you think the rationale is clear? Because I know on behalf of the Government Information Agency, the discrepancy they have with GINA is the fact that the information is more or less biased information that we put forward.
All right, let me say from the onset, being a former officer and executive producer at the Government Information Agency, the Government Information Agency has no business with balance. Balance is not part of the modus operandi or the operating procedures of the Government Information Agency. I believe it's ludicrous, and I hate to think it's ignorance on the part of the members of the opposition. If it is, I believe it's deliberate ignorance that members of the opposition would insist that GINA be more balanced in its reportage. I believe that GINA, every government in every country on the face of this earth is entitled to its own information agency or information arm or a ministry of information of its own if it were. And I think it's preposterous to think that the Government Information Agency, for example, would be singled out in this manner. There's only one word to describe it, and that word is vendetta. I see this personally, and we see it in the media fraternity. We ought to see it in the media fraternity as one word, vendetta.
And with respect to the National Communications Network, I know they have the widest reach, and I'm sure most of those persons out there, the populace, would depend on the information and the reach of NC, and they would also be affected in terms of being deprived of information.
Well, as it relates to the National Communications Network, I'm going to say straight off the bat that we are going to get back to the drawing board tomorrow, or the management of the National Communications Network. We will assess where our future lies, and I'm sure NCN is going to find a way to overcome this.